Hi, this is Dr. Kathleen Hallinan, and we are continuing our weight loss vlog. Today we're going to go over the similarities between food addiction and drug addiction. These two entities are very similar, and we don't often see food as an addiction, but I'm going to show you that what you're battling is equally, if not more, addicting than some of the problems that we see with heroin and opiates and narcotics. I do treat heroin addiction in the office with Suboxone, which is a medication that helps heroin addicts stay off of their heroin, and it is very interesting how many similarities there are between the addiction that patients have to narcotics and the addiction that patients have to food. The definition of addiction is continuing a behavior despite many adverse effects. And so if you have had your heart attack and your bypass and you're on 3 medicines for your diabetes and your blood pressure's up, then certainly that's telling you something if you're continuing to go to eat your Big Mac. So let's go over the similarities. Both food and narcotics increase dopamine. What is dopamine? Dopamine is the neurotransmitter in your brain that says, I feel great. That is the high that people get when they either eat their Ben and Jerry's or they shoot up with heroin. And while you might think that the food can't possibly be as addicting as heroin, the data would say otherwise. There was a study that was done in rats, and they addicted them to cocaine, and then offered them sugar water, and the vast majority of the rats chose the sugar water over the cocaine. So do not underestimate the addicting power of the food. It will boost the dopamine in your brain that makes you feel great, and so to push away from the table on that one is quite a challenge. We'll go through some of the other similarities. Cravings, the more sugar you take in, the more you want it. The more heroin you shoot up, the more you want it. So the important thing is that the longer you're away from either of these things, the less the cravings become. So my heroin addicts are very clear. They know that they must avoid people, places, and things. They must avoid all of the triggers that remind them or make them crave. So the same thing with food. You must keep all the junk out of the house. Get the stuff out of the house. Don't go to the restaurants that you know are your weak points. Stay away from people who will pressure you to eat more, and if you must be around them, then be around them when it's not a mealtime or something. You must avoid the triggers if you want to have success. So the denial and stigma both kind of are two sides of the same coin. Again, like I discussed, people are in a lot of denial about the food addiction. They don't see oftentimes or don't want to see the connection between their medical problems and the addiction that they have to food. If you can't give it up and you've already incurred many medical problems despite what you're putting in your mouth, then that's a problem and that's an addiction. And if you don't want to see that, then you're in denial. It's the same way with heroin addicts. If they've lost their job and lost their kids and are living in somebody else's house and don't have a car because they've spent all their money on heroin and all they're trying to do is, get to their next high, and they don't see the need to go into rehab, then that's some serious denial. So in both cases, they're fatal. Both of these areas are going to be the death of you. So just because oftentimes one happens at a slower pace doesn't mean it's not just as damaging. The stigma is kind of an interesting issue, to be honest. There's much more of a stigma to heroin and narcotic addiction. Obviously, we have a lot of social pressures that we bring to bear on people to get them away from narcotics. There's drug court, there's probation, there's threats of jail time or they've been in jail. And so to be honest, the people that I've seen that have success in staying away from drugs are the ones that have had these social pressures come down on them hard. They want to get their kids back. They want to stay out of jail. Well, with food, not so much. There's really no social pressure, and if anything, our society is trying to become more accepting of body size and these things, and the media is flooded with commercials for food, for soda. There is no social pressure, quite honestly, against the food addiction. So the only thing that you can do is start to have your own awareness about this, that people are trying to do this to make money off of you at the expense of your food addiction. So start paying attention. Nobody is advertising carrots and broccoli because they're not addicting. So you should be, your day, your food choices should be things that you can't find a commercial for. Whatever you're eating should be something that there's no biggie size of. So try to start to think that way. And again, as I've said in other videos, you must be very concrete when you're trying to lose the weight. Pick a strategy that avoids all of the things that will make you crave. I don't care if it's, again, if it's Atkins or Weight Watchers or South Beach, or now everyone's doing keto, and I've done a video on that. Pick a strategy that keeps you away from the triggers. We've kind of covered already the continuing despite negative effects. The co-occurring disorders is very important. If you comfort eat because you're depressed or because you're anxious, then get the depression and anxiety treated. There are medications that are very effective. Make sure that if you are on an antidepressant, that it's not one that causes weight gain. And if you don't tolerate the others, then try to start to get into some other modality that helps your sense of either well-being. I would start to look into counseling, meditation practice. Yoga is very helpful. Martial arts for men is very effective. You get the physical activity as well as the mental discipline. And to go back up kind of to the top here, so whenever you don't feel good, right, you feel depressed and anxious, what do you try to do? You want to do something that will give you dopamine, that makes you feel good. So you need to substitute other activities. Start to try to find something that is your own feel-good thing, whether that is some activity. For me, it's running. It's wonderfully clearing and centering, but if you can't do something like that, that's the thing that's very individual with this, and that's why it's really hard to find a one-size-fits-all solution, because you need to find something that makes you have a constant low-level sense of well-being so that you don't need the dopamine fix. So whether that's something that gives you a sense of purpose, whether it's volunteering or in your daily work, or faith-based practices are very helpful, and interestingly enough, we find oftentimes that things like AA incorporate a strong sense of acknowledgement of a higher power that is very helpful for a strong sense of well-being and for resiliency. There's a lot out there now on resiliency training, and your sense of well-being has a lot to do with that. If you are solidly feeling good about yourself, then you don't need to be doing things that spike up your dopamine. So I hope this has been helpful. It's a little bit dicey when we start to talk about food as an addiction, because people don't want to acknowledge that, but it certainly it is, and it's very powerful, and it has a strong hold over about 70% of our population. So I appreciate your comments. Thank you so much. I do read them, and they are what keep me coming back and trying to make these videos. If they're at all helpful, share them with your friends. Share them with anyone you think might find them helpful. I think we've done about 38 of them now. So good luck. You guys are doing great, and keep up the good work.